Jalen Carter was the kind of student teachers often forgot existed. Quiet, sharp-eyed, always seated in the second row by the window in room 207 of Ridgeway Middle School in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His notebook was always open, pencil tapping a beat that only he could hear. Not nerves, just rhythm. The kind that lived in his bones. The kind his grandfather used to say was a heartbeat with melody. But rhythm didn't count for much in Miss Hardwick's class. She was the type who ran her lessons like a courtroom, tight, efficient, no space for nonsense. Some said she was fair. Others said she had favorites. Jalen? He wasn't on either list. In fact, most days he felt like he wasn't on her radar at all. Until Tuesday. That Tuesday. Miss Hardwick had a look in her eyes, like a lion eyeing its next meal. And Jalen? He wasn't used to being hunted. She scanned the class, and, for the first time all year, her gaze locked onto him. "Mr. Carter," she said, loud enough to hush the room. "Why don't you tell us what the Emancipation Proclamation was really about?" Heads turned. Whispers started. Jalen blinked. She never called on him. Never. But without missing a beat, he spoke. It was a strategic military decision by Lincoln, not just a moral one. It weakened the South's workforce and gave the Union a moral high ground. The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was surprise. Miss Hardwick's eyebrow twitched. She didn't expect that. "Interesting," she said, her voice cool. But something about the way she said it, like the words had a bitter aftertaste, made Jalen's stomach twist. Class carried on. But her eyes kept drifting to him, measuring him, like she had finally noticed a shadow she didn't like. And then, just before the bell, "Jalen." A word. His friends paused at the door. One mouthed, "You good?" Jalen nodded, heart thudding, but his face unreadable. Miss Hardwick folded her hands, her tone suddenly light. "I heard you mention your grandfather the other day. Said he was a jazz musician?" Jalen tensed. "Yeah." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We have a piano in the corner, as you know. Tomorrow, you'll play something for us." It wasn't a request. Jalen stared at her. "Why?" "Because I think the class could benefit from a performance." She wasn't curious. She was daring him to fall. That night, Jalen barely touched his dinner. Barely slept. His fingers itched for the keys, but his mind raced. This wasn't about music. This was about putting him on a stage just to watch him crumble. But she didn't know what that piano meant to him. She didn't know it saved him when nothing else could. By the next morning, the rumors had spread like wildfire. "You gonna play, Carter? Yo, he's probably trash. He's gonna choke." Jalen didn't respond. He walked into class, calm, quiet, coiled like a spring. Miss Hardwick waited until the final 15 minutes of class, then closed her book slowly, like a movie villain preparing for the final act. "Well, Mr. Carter," she said, turning toward the dust-covered piano. "Impress us." The class turned in their seats. Jalen stood. No shaking hands. No visible fear. Just purpose. He walked to the piano. The keys were old, chipped, uneven. He ran his fingers across them gently. This piano hadn't been loved in years, but it would be now. He sat, took a breath, then he played. Not the soft, tentative notes they expected, but bold, rich chords that filled every corner of the room with sound. A jazz progression full of warmth, grief, power notes that told stories of the Deep South, of freedom songs, of voices rising even when no one wanted to listen. The class fell silent, mouths open. Even the class clown leaned forward, forgetting to be funny. "Miss Hardwick?" Her arms were crossed, but her expression had cracked. Jalen's fingers moved faster now, melody and rhythm weaving like a river through a storm. The room swam in his sound, wrapped in something older than textbooks, deeper than lectures. And then, a crescendo. One final run of notes that climbed and fell like a heartbeat breaking through chains. Silence. Not a whisper. Not a breath. Then, clap. 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 The room erupted. Whistles, cheers, gasps. Even students who'd never spoken to him before were on their feet. But Miss Hardwick? She didn't move, didn't clap, didn't smile. That was unexpected, was all she said. Jalen stood, not for applause, but for himself. She looked at him, eyes narrow. Where'd you learn that? He didn't flinch. From someone who believed in me more than you do. The class fell quiet again. You're out of line, she said, her voice sharp. No, he replied, calm as ever. I'm just not invisible anymore. And for the first time, Miss Hardwick didn't have a comeback. The bell rang. Students buzzed around him. Fists bumped. Hands clapped his back. Eyes lingered with awe. Jalen walked toward the door. Behind him, Miss Hardwick called, Jalen. He paused, turned. Her face softened just a fraction. Don't let it go to your head. He smiled. Too late. Outside, the air felt lighter, brighter. For the first time, he wasn't just a shadow in the hallway. He was a name. That afternoon, he walked into his grandmother's house, the smell of baked bread and old records in the air. She looked up from the couch, eyes twinkling. You played, didn't you? He nodded, setting his bag down. Did they hear you? She asked. They didn't have a choice, he said. She laughed softly, tears glinting in her eyes. That night, Jalen sat at his own piano. Not to practice, but to remember. Because when the world finally hears you, really hears you, there's no going back. And Miss Hardwick? She never looked at him the same way again. Not because he proved her wrong, but because he reminded everyone in that room what it means to listen. So if this story moved you, if you've ever felt invisible, remember this. Your talent is louder than their doubt. Your voice is stronger than their silence. And when you speak with truth, they'll have no choice but to hear you. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us. You're more powerful than you think.